Hey Astro Kids, and welcome back. And in today's video, we'll be talking about Mars in the 8th house. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. So before we start, just a few quick disclaimers. You first want to understand what sign is Mars positioned in. Is Mars exalted in Capricorn, debilitated in Cancer, or in its own sign of Scorpio or Aries, or in a sign that it enjoys being in? This is very important to understand for the functioning of Mars. Along with this, you want to understand, is Mars conjunct with any planets or receiving an aspect from any planets? You also want to consider, where is Aries or Scorpio placed within your natal chart, as Mars will have a direct influence over these houses. Also, is Mars compatible with your ascendant? You also want to understand that Mars matures at the age of 28. So this is a very pivotal moment, as Mars will take rulership over your life. Along with this, Mars will be very important during a Mars return, when it returns back to the position where it was placed within your natal chart. The most important time, though, is during a Mars Mahadasha, where the lessons and the experiences of Mars become heavily activated within your natal chart. So if you have not seen my video on the Mars Mahadasha Bhuktis, I will leave a link for that above and down below in the description. So what does Mars represent? Mars is seen as the army general in astrology. Mars represents courage, action. It is your will to take action. It is your ability to go up against obstacles in life, your ability to take risk. It is your ability to persevere, to move forward in life. Mars is all about action. Mars does not want to stop and think. It wants to take action. Mars also is a signifactor for anger, so it's very important that we understand how to control Mars within our natal chart. Along with this, Mars represents brothers, blood, war, violence, aggression. Mars is connected to sporting events and anything related to being active and physical. It is also related to mathematical skills and computer skills. Along with this, Mars represents property. Anything that you're doing that is involved with the real estate, all of this is related to Mars. And Mars, above all things, is related to our energy, how we are directing our energy into physical action. So what does the 8th house represent? The 8th house is a very powerful house that is very dark and intense. This is the most hidden house within our natal chart. It represents secrets and mysteries. The 8th house is a house of detective work, of anything involved in the occult, astrology, mysticism. It is all about going deep below the surface. The 8th house is a house of deep research, of deep contemplation, of going into psychology, into fears, into everything that resolves within the darkness. The 8th house is also a house of sudden events, of sudden situations of transformation, of emergencies, accidents, all sorts of sudden reversals in life. It is a house of great psychological changes and emotional instability. The 8th house is also a house of death and destruction, but it is also a house of survival, so it signifies longevity. It is our ability to overcome obstacles in life. The 8th house also is representing our married life, as it is second from the 7th house. So as the 7th house represents marriage, the 8th house is the deeper aspects of marriage. It represents our shared resources, intimacy, sexuality is seen through the 8th house. So what happens when Mars is positioned within the 8th house of your natal chart? Mars feels pretty comfortable in the 8th house because the 8th house is the original home of Scorpio, and Mars is the ruler of Scorpio. So this is the battlefield. This is the place of survival, of overcoming obstacles, of going through great and dramatic transformations. So here, Mars, being a soldier, feels like he is on the battlefield. This position is extremely powerful. This gives you the ability, especially if Mars is placed well in the chart, to overcome many obstacles in life. You are someone who is naturally a survivor. Mars in the 8th house gives you a great amount of courage and determination. You are someone who never gives up. You always are able to find a way out of difficult situations. Mars here is also considered to be Manglic, which means that it can create some obstacles in marriage sometimes. So sometimes this position can create some issues of multiple marriages, or separation can be seen. This also can create difficulties with joint finances, with in-laws. There can be all sorts of situations in this area where this becomes very difficult for marriage. Mars here can make you someone who is very possessive, very intense in your relationships. This gives you a very intense sexual nature, and you are someone who is very protective, very intense, very much wanting to have a deep, intense connection. So sometimes this can come across as too powerful, as too intense within your relationships. And if Mars is not positioned well in this 8th house, it can also give some addictions around sexuality as well. Along with this, because Mars represents sharp weapons and blood, and this 8th house is a house of emergency situations, this is an excellent position for a surgeon, for anyone working in the medical field, especially in emergency and crisis situations. Along with this gives a penetrating insight into the human mind. So this is an excellent position for a psychologist, for anyone who is able to see below the surface, able to suss out the intentions and motives of others. You have a deep ability to penetrate through the minds of others with this position. So this is a very intense placement. This is definitely an excellent placement for anything involved with detective work, with any kind of deep research. Mars here can definitely give you an interest in mystery, in all things that are hidden, all things that are deep, complex, strange. You can have an interest in murder mystery, in horror movies, and all of these types of subjects with Mars in this 8th house. As Mars aspects onto the 11th house, this also gives you a great ability to gain control over your incoming gains. You're able to deal with debts. You're able to clear out debts and to make sure that your income is continually increasing. So this gives a great ability to increase your wealth and resources. Sometimes Mars, if it is well placed in the 8th house, can also give you some inheritance, property, all sorts of opportunities to gain through this position. So this is definitely a position that helps in your ability to increase your wealth. And even when Mars is placed poorly within this 8th house, you may go through sudden ups and downs, you may go through bankruptcy, but Mars always gives you the strength to overcome these obstacles and to come back out on top. So this is definitely a position of a survivor, of a winner. You are constantly thriving through difficult situations. Sometimes you can run into some conflicts with this position as well, especially because Mars is aspecting onto the 2nd house of your chart, which can give you really intense way of speaking. Sometimes your speech can come across as too forceful, too direct. You want to be very careful about how you are interacting with others. Mars definitely gives you a strong value system as it aspects onto the 2nd house. So you are someone who stands by your values, who stands up for the things that you value. This is a very powerful position in this way. And this aspect onto the 2nd house of speech definitely gives you a powerful speaking voice that can come across as very impressive, as very dynamic. Other people love the way that you speak. It is captivating. If Mars is poorly placed, though, there can also be issues with speech. All sorts of speech disorders, impediments that can be seen with this position as well. Another thing with Mars's aspect onto the 2nd house is you want to be very careful about what you are taking into your body. Again, addictions can be seen from Mars in the 8th house. So sometimes there are issues with eating, with drugs, with all sorts of substances that are being taken into the body. Mars here, if it is placed well, though, also gives you the strength to overcome addictions. As Mars aspects onto the 3rd house, again, you have an incredible amount of courage and determination. You are able to overcome any obstacle in life. Mars's aspect onto this 3rd house can also give you a great amount of skills. You can be skilled with writing, technology, research. This is an excellent position. Sometimes, though, there can be obstacles with siblings, as this 3rd house represents siblings, particularly younger siblings. And because Mars is a masculine energy, you can have some obstacles with younger brothers, with younger male cousins with this position as well. Sometimes there is fighting with siblings over property, over land, over family concerns. So definitely this is a position where sometimes it is better to move away from your immediate surroundings. Mars in the 8th house can also get you caught up into the wrong situations with the wrong people. As Mars aspects onto the 11th house, you can be surrounded by negativity. You can be easily influenced by negative situations. So it's very important to be mindful of your situations and the people who you are dealing with.